Welcome back to the Revelation tour of the Bible study that we're doing and in the book of Revelation. Today we're going to continue on with Revelation. In chapter 2, we're going to go on to the fourth church, and we're going to connect what happened with the third church to the fourth church because both of those churches kind of go together. One feeds into the other. One is the cause, and the other one's the effect, and we'll see that as we go along with the study. But before we do that, let's go ahead and first, like we always do, let's have a prayer. Give me a second. Thank you, Father, for today. Thank you for this study that we're about to do and continue. Please help us as we continue on with this study of the churches, that everybody could understand what's being said, what's happening, what's in your word, and what you told us was going to happen before it happened, and so that we could better understand why today we are where we are. I pray in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen. So we're going to, as I was saying, we're going to go ahead and go back to Revelation 2. And we're going to see here. Looks like there we go. Stretch this out a little bit. This is Revelation 2. Again, this is the letter to the churches, as we were looking at before. And we already went through the first three churches. Correct? Yeah, the first three churches. The first church dealing with the time of the book of Acts, which covers pretty much actually covers from after Jesus' ascension all the way to the end. And then we had the second church, right? And they did good stuff, and we already did that study. The second church, when they were persecuted by Rome, and I call it pagan Rome, and we'll see this as we continue on. If you guys haven't seen it yet, why I call it pagan Rome to separate it, we're going to start seeing this, especially in this specific section we're going to be studying today. So they were persecuted, like verse 10 says here. They were in tribulation for 10 days, and we saw how this actually means 10 years, and we saw that in the using Wikipedia and Britannica and all types of other information we found on Google. Reaffirming this the what I was explaining. Then we got to the third church, which is where we left off. So as I said right now in the introduction, this church leads to the fourth church. For me personally, this is the peak of where, not the third church, but the fourth church is the peak of why today the majority of people believe in what they believe. The third church started it, and the fourth church solidified it. On the third church, we're not going to do a big study on it, even though we're going to go back to it probably several times. We saw that Jesus is speaking to his church, to his people, the ones that still, like verse 13 says, still hold fast to his name and has not denied his faith, that they were being surrounded by pagans, right? As we saw where Satan's seat is, well, that's where paganism is. And then those days when Antipas, right, which we found out, or we saw it was anti, which is against, and pas, which is, I think the word was, what did we say was Greek? I can't remember, but pas means papa, right, or father in English, right? Pas, papas in Spanish or Latin or whatever other language, but father in English. So it's anti-father. We saw that there was already popes at that time frame during this church. So the martyr of Jesus Christ, who was slain among his people, is against the fathers or against the popes. We saw that. And then we saw how during this time frame, new doctrines were being introduced, right? Doctrines of Balaam. And also they had still those that had the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. The doctrines of Balaam, we saw that it had to do with teaching how to worship other gods, which is what Balaam did, taught Balak, the king Balak, to how to get Israel to go worship other gods, so that he could destroy them, or he could go against, so God could go against his people. And then the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, we covered it during the first church. We also covered it a little bit here on the third church when we studied that one. But that has to do with the people who believe that once they're saved, that it's okay, they could do whatever they want because they're saved, right? Oh, my spirit is separate from my flesh, meaning I'm saved in the spirit, and since my flesh is going to go to corruption, I didn't say all these, but this kind of is the same idea. I could do whatever I want with the flesh. I could continue sinning because I'm saved, which is kind of like, in a sense, the beginnings of the once saved, always saved doctrine, where there's some people, maybe some people might think that that's not once saved, always saved, but there are people who believe that, oh, once I'm saved, there's nothing I could do because I'm saved and I could continue living without studying, the Bible, the Word of God, without, actually doing what God wants me to do because that's it. I said a few words. Now I'm saved in my mind, and so therefore I'm good. That's the doctrine of the Nicolaitans in a nutshell. And then we covered, which I'm not going to go into, verse 17 about the hidden manna, and the manna relates to Jesus Christ. Also about the white stone and where that could have came from. So we're going to continue on. So we saw the church go from being a triumphant church, converting a lot of people, as we see in the book of Acts, a lot of Gentiles, and even Jewish people as well, converting over to Christianity. Then they start getting persecuted by by pagan Rome. They start getting persecuted by pagan Rome. Rome starts to persecute them. Constantine, we spoke about Constantine. He converts over, and now Christianity is popular. Now paganism starts to convert over, and now they start to bring in their doctrines, and they start teaching how to worship this false god. And we also covered again how there was two main school of thoughts. One was the Trinitarian God, which Athanasius brought in, and we also saw in the Bible what the Bible teaches about God himself, which is more of what Arian taught. So we had both of those. And we saw that in history. We go look back in history, and you don't have to look at history because you could just go to your local church, which is the God that they profess to worship. They profess to worship the Trinity God. So which one of these two theories, or not, I don't want to say theories, which one of these two doctrines came out to be the winner? And we saw that, or we could see today that the Trinity doctrine, which is the doctrine that Jesus says here he's against, is the one that won. So this is why there's there's one central theme to the Trinity, right? Or one central definition, explanation of the Trinity. Different groups, different denominations could say, oh, ours is just a tiny bit little different, or a little bit here different there. Oh, it's not the same. At the end of the day, it's the same. It just has a little variation. Basically, there's three, right? That three persons that equals one God. One God and three persons and one God. And that we saw is not what the Bible teaches. So once this evolution continued to happen, or this change happened to the people, right, to the church, I'm not saying that everybody converted to this, because we're going to see here in the fourth church how that's not the case, but the majority accepted this new theology. And the reason they accepted it, again, part of it was, if I didn't mention it in the previous church, was whoever had the ear of the emperor, right? Whoever had the favor of the emperor was put in high positions. When we go to the seals, I'll cover that a little bit more. Hopefully I'll remember, I'll be able to cover that a little bit more. So let's continue on. So new doctrines have been put in place, new doctrines have been accepted. Like it said here, the doctrine, verse 14, the doctrine of Balaam has been accepted. And now we're going to continue on with verse 18 here. And unto the angel of the church in Thyatira write, these things says the Son of God, who hath his eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. I know thy works and charity and service, and faith and thy patience and thy works, and the last to be more than the first. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication, and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. And I will kill her children with death. And all the churches shall know that I am he which searches the reins and hearts, and I will give unto every one of you according to your works. But unto you I say, and to the rest in Thyatira, as many as have not this doctrine, and which have not known the depths of Satan, as they speak, I will put upon you none other burden, but that which ye have already hold, fast till I come. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. And I will give him the morning star. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches. So going back, that's that whole section. So the last church age, the third church age, that I was speaking or finishing off before continuing on, that church age finished about 538. The around at five in the year 538, which is a very important year, especially when we continue on with Revelation, we're going to see there's going to be specific number dates and stuff like that, and we'll be able to see that these years coincide with history. In the year 538, the papacy finally received or was given power to be able to rule. I don't think I have this necessarily here, so I'm going to give this as an extra. Around the year 508, because I had to go research this myself. And that's also, by the way, I believe, also in the book of Daniel, there's dates there that coincide. But just to keep it short, in the year 508, Justinian started or established his laws and stuff like that to allow the Pope to be able to exercise executive power or state power. The Pope already exercised church power. Now he gave him state power. So pretty much he was uniting state and church into the papacy. Now, the problem was that the papacy was not allowed to do this, to exercise his power, because if we go to Daniel, okay, I guess we'll go to Daniel. I wasn't planning to go to Daniel, but let's go to Daniel, since this is a Revelation tour of the Bible. When we go to Daniel, this is not going to be a deep study in Daniel, because we're studying Revelation, but it's good to look at this. I'm going to give a quick explanation of the things as we see them, plus the verse, the Bible itself or the chapter itself explains itself. But I'll give an advanced explanation. And if you guys want me to go deeper into Daniel, we could do that on a separate presentation. Just let me know. So in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. So Belshazzar is actually the grandson of King Nebuchadnezzar. So if you guys ever start with Daniel chapter 1, we see that King Nebuchadnezzar, right here in the third year, etc., Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, right? That's where Daniel starts with this king. This Babylon, or not Babylon, the king took Jerusalem hostage, pretty much, for X reason. We're not going to get into that. But Belshazzar is the grandson of King Nebuchadnezzar. In other words, Daniel has already been in Babylon for quite a while now. So he had dreams and visions, and he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. Now see, and we'll see this also in Revelation later on, if it's not covered here. We'll see this also in Revelation. It's, I believe, chapter 13 also mentions it. Sea deals with a lot of people, a lot of population. There is four winds of heaven. They strove upon the great sea. The winds, and we'll cover this when we hit the trumpets, because I have that all prepped already. The winds deal with strife and war and stuff like that. So on earth, right, there's a lot of strife and war amongst the people. And four great beasts come up from the sea, diverse one from another. So as we're going to see, as these beasts come out, as he sees them in an order, this also is in parallel to Daniel chapter 2 with the dream of the statue with the different metals. It's another version of that same dream. And these beasts, they come out from strife, from war. Okay, that's how they come to take their place as the as the supreme nation of this time of history. So four great beasts come up from the sea, diverse from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. This is here speaking about Babylon itself, the kingdom of Babylon. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. I'm going to continue on. We're not going to take every single little bit because it'll take too long. And behold, so this is that's talking about the king of Babylon, or the kingdom of Babylon. Behold, another beast. The next, the beast also, real quick, if you haven't figured it out, represents kingdoms. Okay, not just a king, but kingdoms. Okay, because I know that talks about the a man's heart was given to it, etc. Again, I could go deeper into some other time, but the beast deals with kingdoms. Another beast, verse 5, he beholds another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. So the next kingdom that comes to the scene here, that takes the place of Babylon, the kingdom of Babylon, as the supreme, it's a supreme nation, I guess, or a supreme kingdom of the time. This is throughout history, right? This is many, many, many years in the making. When they come in, they last for a while. Then another kingdom comes in and takes over and lasts for a while. This other beast is going to be Media Persia. We see that it's raised up itself on one side, higher than the other. This beast, or this bear-like beast, which represents Medo Persia, that kingdom was made up of the Medes and the Persians, and the Persians were stronger than the Medes, but they were united together. It had three ribs in the mouth of it. The three ribs are three different nations, right? Because the ribs come from an animal, from a beast, and the beast represents kingdoms. These are three different nations that it had destroyed or taken over, probably a better word, taken over prior to coming to Babylon. And then obviously it said, "Come and devour much flesh." So come and continue to destroy. After this, I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So now we see another beast come in, which is a leopard, which actually represents the nation of Greece, or the kingdom of Greece. The wings deal with speed. The first one you see at Babylon had 2. This one had 4, right? So it even faster, right? And since this is Greece, if you guys remember, Alexander the Great was from Greece, and Alexander the Great conquered really fast the known world at that time. The beast had also 4 heads. Why did it have 4 heads? Because, and as a matter of fact, when we go to Daniel, if you go to Daniel 11, it talks a little bit about this even more. What happened, and also Daniel chapter 8 also speaks to this. When Alexander the Great died, what happened? At the end of the day, 4 generals ended up taking over his dominion, and it separated his conquest separated into 4 different divisions, and then eventually it ended up, 2 united, two others got united, etc., and ended up being a north and a south division. But it got split up into 4. So there's your 4 heads. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So there's a lot to be spoken of here. And to get back to where we were at, I'm going to cut a lot of this out because now I forgot where we even started, but I'll get back to it. So this 4th beast is Rome. Okay. Besides, it says had great iron teeth. Rome was known for iron. When you look at Daniel chapter 2, the legs of iron also represent Rome. During that era, iron was the main metal that was used. It was the Iron Age, I guess we could almost say. This beast, it was diverse. It says here, it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. Now, why was it diverse? Because the other beast, as we saw here in the beginning, verse 2, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea, and the four winds pretty much means north, east, south, and west. There was just war coming from all directions. One beast came up, which was the kingdom of Babylon. The second beast came up, devouring much flesh, through means of war and destruction. The third beast, which is the bear here, right, where it says, "Arise, devour much flesh." The third beast, also same idea, dominion was given to it, and the same idea. But the fourth beast, which is Rome did not come conquering through war. Rome became a big kingdom or nation by more through logistical ideas. Yes, they had an army, and there was wars and stuff like that, but it was more through trade and more through diplomatic means is how they ended up becoming strong and conquering. Let's go back to Revelation 2 to remember what it was that we were looking at here. Oh yes, it had to do with the saints, I believe. So if we continue on, we see here that these 10 horns, so Daniel 7:7, it says here it had 10 horns. Now, these horns is also called powers. So there's these 10 kingdoms that came from the 10 horns. I'm sorry, not the 10 horns. The 10 horns represent kingdoms. These 10 kingdoms came from Rome, because where are the 10 horns at? The 10 horns are on the beast, on the head of the beast. So the 10 kingdoms come from the beast itself. And then it said here, verse 8, "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn." And that's what we're talking about. The papacy, the year 508, and the year 538. This is where I was getting to here. So out of these, in the middle of these 10 kingdoms, if we look back in history, we know that Rome, once it got kind of broken up, there's 10 kingdoms that kind of came out of it. And so we go into that some other day, but there's 10 kingdoms that were there, and we'll cover that a little bit more when we hit the trumpets. "I considered the horns, and behold, there came upon them a little horn, another little horn." So we see that there's this other horn that is that's not part of these 10. It comes from above them, but they're not just horns, same size. It's a little horn, and before this horn, there are 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. So I think I mentioned during the Church of Arian, during the third church period, when the pagan beliefs and doctrines were being mixed into the church. I believe I spoke about that once Arian and the people who backed Arian, right? There was 3 out of these 10. There was 3 actual nations or 3 kingdoms that actually backed Arian. They were Arians. That that the reason that it says, as we read on some of that those documentations that we're reading, that Arian believed that Jesus was created or a lesser being and all this other stuff, was because I mentioned was because the reason was because once Arian and those 3 nations were destroyed, all their works, for the most part, that I'm aware of, maybe there might be something here or something there, but for the most part, all their works were destroyed. So we truly don't know exactly what it was that they actually believed and taught all the way 100%. We have an idea, but not exactly. And those 3 nations were pretty much completely destroyed off the face of this earth. We see here in verse 8, speaking about this, you have your 10 horns or your 10 kingdoms. Out of there, one little one comes out. And before this little one, right? Because of this little one, before him, 3, and so that means because for this little horn, 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots, meaning they were taken out by the roots. There was no residue left. There was nothing left. Completely eliminated. And behold, and let's just finish this verse up. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. So we're going to see what these great things here is being spoken of. So we know that the papacy itself, right, was another power that came up. And as a matter of fact, today, if you look at the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church, in a sense, it's a power in a sense, just like, but we could say, well, it's just like any other church, right? But if you look at who's head of the Catholic Church, the Pope, his whole office, the papacy, that whole office of the papacy, it's just not any other church. It is its own little kingdom, right where it's at right now. It's got ambassadors. It's the smallest little kingdom, or the smallest little nation, if you want to call it, or kingdom or whatever, on earth right now, and it's got so much influence over the world, um, which I can't right now get into, but it's got a lot of influence. It's got a lot of power. So this and the papacy ended up coming after these 10 kingdoms were established. It came afterwards, just like it says here, in verse 7. It devoured. Here we go. So it had 10 horns, and then verse 8 says, "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn." So you have your 10 nations or 10 kingdoms that come from Rome, and then another little kingdom that comes from Rome. Okay, and because of this little kingdom, for this little kingdom, 3 of the other kingdoms are completely destroyed and wiped out. Which takes me back to what I was speaking about. In the year 508, Justinian finally puts laws on the books to be able to give all this executive, or all this state power, over the Pope, to the papacy. That was in 508. If you guys look up that year, you guys will be able to find, and Justinian and the Pope, you guys will be able to find this for yourselves. And then 30 years later, in 538, the Pope is able to now exercise this state power. Why is that? Because there was war. These 10 tribes or 10 kingdoms started warring against each other. And I would say mostly it was 7 versus 3. And the first horn was knocked out. There was 2 horns left, and the second horn was knocked out. And I can't remember their names right now, but like, again, if you guys want a deeper study, just let me know, and we'll do a whole study on this. And then the third horn, which I believe was the Ostrogoth, if I'm not mistaken, they were the last ones that were holding the papacy in check, and it was the French that came in and knocked that kingdom out, and it was the French who allowed the papacy to now be able to take power and take control and be able to exercise those laws that Justinian wrote 30 years ago, and be able to now rule not only in the church, but also rule in the state. State and church power united together. And we saw that with the papacy in the year 538. And we're gonna skip some of these verses because that's not part of what we're talking about here. Verse 11. Remember that here in verse 8 it says that this little horn spoke great things. So now when we go to verse 11, because verse 9 and 10 has to do with a heavenly scene. Verse 11, back here on earth, "I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake." So we have the voice of the great words. We got great words being spoken by the horn. "I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and gave it to the burning flame. And as concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, their lives were prolonged for a season and time." Basically, as each beast came in and took over, well, it's not like the beast the kingdoms necessarily disappeared 100%. They kind of continued on. Their ideas also were added on to the next kingdom, and so on and so forth. This is why we have philosophy, I think, is from Greece, and we have different ideas and stuff like that. All right, so let's go to the interpretation of this stuff. Verse 16. So Daniel, now after he's done seeing all these visions and stuff, he came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this, right? He's still in vision. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. So here's the interpretation of what I was speaking about. Now we can get through this real quick. "These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall rise arise out of the earth. Now, these 4 kings doesn't mean one specific person. We'll see how kings and kingdoms are interchangeable. So these are 4 kingdoms which shall rise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and even forever and ever. That's in the future still. Then I will know the truth. Then I would know the truth of the 4th beast. Daniel wants to know the truth of the 4th beast, which is the one we spent some time speaking on right now, which was diverse from all the others, etc. Verse 20, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up. We're going to continue and see here that it says here, in the mouth, right? This little horn had a mouth that spake very great things. Again, it's being mentioned, these great things. We'll see what these great things are now. And it says here, I beheld in the same horn, the same little horn, made war with the saints and prevailed against them. So when we get to the trumpets, we're going to see some of this stuff intertwined here with what we're reading. So this little horn made war with the saints. Remember what I was speaking about? That you had the 2 different doctrinal ideas. 7 of the 10 nations or kingdoms that we're going to see here about about those horns that came out. 7 of them were in favor of the Trinity. 3 of them were not. The 7 before, like I said, before the little horn. In other words, for the little horn, the 7 knocked out the other 3. So in the 7 that are in favor with the papacy, with the Pope, and it says that the Pope, which is a little horn, we'll see that out here in a little bit, made war with the saints. Who are the saints? They're the 3 other horns that were plucked out from the roots. The ones who believed in Arianism, or had the Arian faith, that there's one true God, which is the Father, and he actually has a literal son, Jesus Christ, which is his son, which is also divine, just as the Father is, but it is his son, not in a Trinity doctrine. So the horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them. Until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. That's in the future. Verse 23, thus he said, now he's gonna focus on the 4th beast. The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And that's kind of like what Rome did, right? Rome came after Greece, and Rome had pretty much the known earth at that time, though, the whole world at that known time, and it did control it for a very long period of time. As a matter of fact, a lot of Romish ideas still today control the minds of many. Verse 24, the 10 horns out of this kingdom, right? So the 10 horns out of Rome are 10 kings that shall arise. Okay, so remember it said here, it calls them here, this kingdom here. And I said that's interchangeable with the word king. Before here says, it said, these great beasts are 4 kings. So kings and kingdoms are interchangeable. We're speaking here prophetic. It's not the lifetime of one man. This is a prophecy from the time of Daniel all the way to the end, till Jesus Christ comes in for the 2nd time and takes the saints with him. The same horn made war with saints. Here we go. Verse 24. The 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. Okay, so you got the 10 kingdoms, the 10 nations, or 10 kingdoms that come out of Rome. Yeah, out of Rome. And then another, which is a small little horn, shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So remember how I said that before the little horn, 3 were plucked out? Here it gets more specific. He, the little horn, shall subdue these 3 kings. Now, how does he do it? Because the papacy, this little horn, is not really a state power, it's a religious power. Well, through religion, he controls the other 7. There was war. You guys could look again. We could get into more detail in another video. And there was war, and these 3 kingdoms were removed. Now, remember I talked about having speaking these great things. What are these great things that he speaks? And he shall speak great words against the Most High. Okay, so the words that are being spoken, what is being taught by him, by what is his whole everything from him, is not for God. It is against God. Now, how can it be against God? There's a lot of things I could get into right now. For one, this whole idea that he replaces Jesus Christ here on earth. That's one. But second, the other one is to go against God is to worship you. If you worship a different God, right? What happens? You're going against the true God. I gotta remember if I did Ezekiel. Yes, I believe I did Ezekiel chapter 8 and chapter 9. If you guys could go back to that and remember that, and I'll review the videos to see if I did cover it. If I didn't cover it, I will cover it. But connect that with Ezekiel 8 and Ezekiel 9. This little horn, this power, which is the papacy, spoke great words against God. And what did he do? He shall wear out the saints of the Most High. He wears them out. So, again, if you guys remember, here, I'm going to connect this back to Revelation 2 here in a second. So he speaks against the Most High. And if you remember, here on the third church, when the papacy pretty much is in full control after the third church era. Remember, this is the third church era is the buildup to the fourth church. Those that hold the doctrine of Balaam, we spoke about what Balaam did. Balaam taught Balak to send women out there, so these women would unite with the Israel men, and then by this union, they would then have the men start worshiping their false gods. And so this all has to do with worship. One of the things I've not mentioned it yet, hopefully I did in the beginning of the series, and I might repeat this in the future again, is there is this great conflict between Christ and Satan, right? Jesus Christ was sent here to try to not try, but to bring us back to God, right? Like Jesus said in John 14, there's only one way to the Father, and that's through him. His mission was to come and bring us, and still is his mission, to bring us back to the worship of the one true God and to worship God. Satan's mission is to destroy that and to do the opposite. So the whole conflict deals with worship. Who are you worshiping? This also goes into play, which we'll speak about this later in the future, about the day of rest, right? Which is the correct day of rest? Because the day of rest deals with worship, the worship of the true God. Is it the seventh day of the week, the Sabbath that God gave to mankind from the beginning of the creation of the world? Or is it the first day of the week, which is the day of the sun? Because if you look at that's where the first day of the week came from, paganism, because that's what they worship, the sun. Is it the first day of the week? Because the Catholic Church has said it is going to be the first day of the week. And yes, there might be some people who say, oh no, that first day of the week was being all the way from the New Testament. No, it's not. It's nowhere in the New Testament. If you can show that to me, we will sit down and we will break it down. But it's nowhere in the New Testament. This did not come in so many, many, many years later, where again, people, pagans who were being converted over to Christianity, started bringing in a little bit of their doctrines over. That's a whole other subject. I'm gonna stray too far away. So going back to Daniel 7, here we see the doctrine of Balaam. The doctrine of Balaam was to teach people to worship a false god. And that is what the papacy did. Because again, Arianism versus atheism, or athean. Yeah, Arius versus Athanasius, I believe was his name. Arius believed in the one true God with a son, and Athanasius, I believe was his name, believed in three gods in one, basically three persons in one God, which is the Trinity doctrine, two different things. So the little horn, which is the Pope, shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. So there's this continuous warring, not only when he was set up and he was finally able to establish, which is we're going to the fourth church, getting to that, probably maybe in the next video as I see it here. We're already like about 37 minutes in, but that's okay. The next video we'll cover a bit more. Not only were three kingdoms subdued, right? Because it says that he shall subdue three kings, but he continued to war against the saints. And it says here, and he thought or he thinks to change times and laws. Put that one in yellow. Now, there is a popular belief, those who come from my faith background, Seventh-day Adventists, that believe that changed times and laws are one and the same. There's a little bit of truth to that, but I have a much more realistic, and we'll cover this now. Laws are, which laws does he plan to change? The laws that he plans to change are the laws of God, right? The laws of God are the laws that he plans to change. He thinks to change times and laws, not create new laws, but change the ones that are in the books already. And as we see here, everything here has to do with worship. Everything here has to do with God. We're not talking about secular. We're talking about a religious idea. When you look at the first commandment, well, I'll start with let's just go down the road. When you look at the first commandment, thou shalt have no other. Let's look up the commandments here real quick. You look at the first commandment, and if you guys could get a find the copy of a Catholic Bible, there'll be some other stuff that we'll be able to see here. In Exodus 20, this is where a lot of people go for the Ten Commandments. It's a good place to go to. The very first commandment. Well, let's start before the first commandment. Let's start in the first verse. And God spake all these words, saying, so these are the words from God. He says, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay, so here God is saying what he did. He is the one that brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of bondage. Because of this, verse 3, it's just that makes more sense when you put that. Because of this, verse 3, thou shalt have no other gods before me. So the very first commandment is telling you that we are not to have any other gods except the God that took Israel out of the land of Egypt. And other portion, and I believe in Deuteronomy and maybe some other spots, the description changes, but the point is it's the same God. We shall have no other gods except the God of Israel, the one that took Israel out of the land of Egypt. When you have going back to again to the I guess this video is going to be a between the third and the fourth church. When you look at the third church, what were they introducing? A new God. Remember, again, it was a pretty much they were dealing with different ideas of God, is what I was mentioning, from different concepts, and then it came down to two concepts or two ideas. The one from Arius, which is from the Arian faith, which is that there's only one God and he has a son, and then the Trinity doctrine from Athanasius, which is the Athanasian Creed. The Athanasian Creed, which comes in from Athanasius, is the Trinity doctrine. And that's the one that ended up winning. That's the one that the Pope teaches. That's the one that the majority of Christianity believes. But if that is a false God, which is what I'm saying, it's a false God, then we have a God before the true God, which is the God of the Bible. And the first commandment is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. What did we read in Daniel chapter 7? Again, that the papacy spoke great words against the Most High. He was against. So when he speaks about great words against, he's against the Most High. He's against them. So he is believing in a God. This is the papacy has to deal with the fourth church period, which we haven't really gotten into too much. That was established during the third church age, which is the doctrine of Balaam. So that during the third church age, when the doctrine of Balaam was being taught, a different God was being taught to the Christians. The Trinity doctrine was brought in, and that's what is believed today. That is what the papacy believes. That is how he speaks against the Most High, besides a whole bunch of other stuff. So going back to the laws that he thinks to change. So the first commandment has to deal with, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Well, he put the Trinity doctrine before the true God of the Bible. Verse 4, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. All right. What does the Catholic Church have? What does the papacy have? What does it promote? All types of image worship, right? Again, verse 3, when it says, thou shalt have no other gods before me, What do they teach in a lot of Catholic places? Oh, pray to the Virgin this buddy, pray to the saint this buddy. Why are we praying to saints and virgins and stuff like that? We pray to the only one true God, not to saints and other people. There's nobody before God. There is no intermediary before God. The only intermediary person that there is Jesus Christ. Let's look that up real quick. Between God and man. Here we go. There's only one, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5. There's only one God and one mediator between God and man. That is the man Christ Jesus. No other mediator is there between God and us. So when we go to Exodus, have no other gods before him. When we put other people like Mary, we put the Pope that we go to, and all this other stuff. That is, we're putting them before God as a middleman. As not only are we replacing the true God for a false God, but now we're also putting an intermediary between what we believe to be the true God and ourselves. Again, verse 4, graven images, we already spoke that, and we see all these images that people pray to. Even if they don't pray to them, they're saying that's just a symbol that represents so and so. It's the same thing. You're creating all these graven images. We're not to have that. Verse 5, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, upon the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So, again, same idea. People bow down to these statues, these images, even if they say that this is supposedly going to represent, other saints and stuff, they're bowing down to them. Verse 7, thou shalt not take the name the Lord thy God in vain, etc. If we call ourselves Christians, we shouldn't be. Anyways, I'll leave that one alone because most people try to keep that one, even though a lot of people curse and use the name of God just in vain. Verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Here is this is the fourth commandment, and here's one I was speaking about, the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Why are we to keep the Sabbath day to keep it holy? And when is the Sabbath day? Because today, if you go around, like even if I were to ask you before you guys watch this, well, when's the Sabbath day? The majority of Christianity would say, oh, it's the first day of the week. Oh, it's Sunday. Well, let's find out what God says. Remember who spoke these things, these words? God spake all these words. So let's see here. Verse 9, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. Okay, so we got 6 days. All right, that could be somebody. Well, I'll give the argument of the opposing side. Okay, Monday through Saturday. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, etc., nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. Okay, so 6 days, and then the seventh day I rest. And that seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. So now we have to see, okay, which one of these 7 days is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God? It's not any day that I choose or any day that the papacy chose for me. What day is the day of the Lord thy God? Verse 11, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that are in them and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and hallowed it. This now takes us back to creation, Genesis 1. I'm pretty sure, hopefully you guys could read Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, the first 3 verses, and see it, and I will just try to condense it to keep the video short. Well, we still have a little bit of time, so we'll see how we go with this. God created, and we know that the first day of the week is Sunday. The first day of the week, all the way to the 6th day of the week, is Sunday through Friday. It's been out through history like this for a very long time. All you have to do is, we know that the Jews have been keeping the Sabbath for a very long time, ever since they've been established. Just look at just ask them, and they'll tell you which is the 7th day of the week. Our calendars from when we used to go to school is from Sunday to Saturday. Unfortunately, in these last years, so many years, because of work and school and stuff like that, they've been swapping over the calendars for Monday through Sunday. But most calendars are still a Sunday through Saturday. This is how Satan is bringing in this false day of worship by changing the calendars. And no, that's not necessarily what deals with the change of the law. I mean of the times. I'll get into that here in a second. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God, in it thou shalt do not any work, nor thy son, etc. That seventh day is the Sabbath, which we know as Saturday. And why is that day? Because it's so specific, and so it's a day that we're to keep, because God rested the seventh day, and what did he do? He blessed the seventh day and hallowed it. It is the only day of the week that God made holy. Holy, and it's not that we worship the day, but it's a day that he chose, that he picked, that he made, he blessed, made holy for us to worship him. The other reason behind this, there's two other reasons. Another reason behind this is because this is in the whole entire Ten Commandments, the only commandment that identifies the God of the Bible. If we go back to the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's great. I just make up a god, Billy Bob the God. That's my God. Okay, because no other gods before Billy Bob. That's fine. There's no other gods before Billy Bob. Don't make any images, etc., etc. Speaks nothing about who this God is, right? Even the first part, the intro that I said, I'm the Lord thy God, which I brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Okay, who is this Lord thy God that brought me out? It could be Billy Bob, the God that brought me out. Don't have any other gods before Billy Bob. Don't make any graven images, etc. Don't bow them, because Billy Bob is a jealous God, right? Verse 5. And verse 7, don't take the name of Billy Bob, the God Billy Bob, in vain. Okay. Now verse 9. Verse 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day. Why? Because verse 11, because this God, which is not Billy Bob, Billy Bob the God did not make the heavens and the earth. Because his day is Sunday. Billy Bob God is Sunday. Let's be more realistic. The Trinity God's day is Sunday. Okay, the Trinity God's day is Sunday, because it comes from pagans, and pagans worship the sun, and pagans worship on Sunday. That is their sun God's day. And this God's day is not Sunday; it's the seventh day. This is what identifies the God that you're worshiping. Are you worshiping the God of the seventh day of the week, the one who blessed that seventh day so that we could worship Him on the Lord's day? Where was it here? Oh, I thought I read it. Oh yeah, right here. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. Are we worshiping on the day of the Lord that our God, or worshiping on a different day? If your God is a Trinity, then by all means, go ahead and worship on Sunday, because that's not the day of the God of the Bible. So again, this here identifies, just to finish this part off, this here identifies the Sabbath day, the seventh day of the week, which is what we know as Saturday, is the day of our God, or the day of the God of the Bible, because He blessed it, and no other day has been blessed. Not even Sunday was blessed. So those are some changes to the law that the papacy has brought in. Then the other ones: thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal. Those are good. Verse 16, there's one that I can't remember which one it was. There's one commandment. Oh, that's right. That's what it was. The commandment to graven images, I believe. The commandment to graven images is not in the Catholic Ten Commandments. And so now you're down to 9. Because even the commandment to keep the Sabbath, I think they shortened that one up also, to kind of remove the whole 7-day deal, if I'm not mistaken. How about me wrong on that one? But they did take off the commandment of graven images, and then what they ended up doing was that I think commandment number 10, thou shalt not covet, I think they divided it up into 2 different commandments to maintain the 10. So if you guys see that, you'll guys see that the commandments were changed, especially starting with the first one and with the fourth one. The other part of this that I spoke of was said, and think to change times and laws. So we spoke about laws, change times. How did the papacy think to change times? The way he decided to think about changing times was to change prophetic time interpretation. Why? Because here we go. Let's finish reading number 25, verse 25 of Daniel 7. He shall speak great words against the Most High. He shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand unto a time, and times, and the dividing of time. Very interesting, because right after it says that he thinks to change times, it speaks about time. Actually, let's put that in yellow. It speaks about times. So this is one of those time periods that is spoken about that he thinks to change. Right here, this time, times, and the dividing of time. Really quick, time equals a year. Times is 2 years, and dividing of time, or half of time, is half a year. So we're talking about 3.5 years in the Jewish calendar. 30 days to a month, 12 months to a year. So 3.5 years is 42 months, which also equals to 1,260 years. 60 days. And day for year interpretation is 1,260 years. The saints, verse 25, the saints, when he wears out the saints, these saints shall be given unto the hands of the papacy for 1,260 years. From the year 538 to the year 1798 are exactly 1,260 years. The papacy had dominion, state and church dominion, for exactly 1,260 years. The funny thing is, once the one who took out the third kingdom, remember the 3 kings that shall be subdued? The third kingdom was France. France took out that kingdom. And now the papacy was able to exercise the power that Justinian gave them to them in the year 508. And I want to show you guys something in Daniel chapter 12 about that real quick also. And the same kingdom, or the same, I guess, France, the same nation, was the one under Napoleon who took out the papacy and took him away from his power in the year 1798. So for an exact 1,260 years, the saints were given into his hand for that exact period of time. Now, how does he think to change times? Simple. During his time period, in the middle of these 1,260 years, people were realizing that the papacy, the Catholic Church, and especially the Pope, the papacy office, was that little king, or the little horn that was being spoken about. So what did he do? He asked for 2 of the smartest people that he had. One of them, and told them to come up with different ideas. One of them came up with this whole idea about, remember we spoke about this in the introductions to all this prophecy stuff. One of them interpreted everything to be way before the time of the papacy, and the other one interpreted the prophecies all in the future. Why? Why did they do this? Because if you believe that all this prophecy happens before the papacy comes into power, then you cannot blame the papacy. You cannot connect the papacy to anything that God spoke to us about through his Bible, through his words and scriptures. And if you say everything's in the future, then again, you can't put anything onto the papacy. But if you do what we're doing, and we're looking at from an historical point of view, and we're founding ourselves throughout history, reading what is being said, interpreting what's being said, using the Bible itself, and using and looking at the landmarks, and having a solid foundation, we see that prophecy is from the time of the prophet all the way to the time of the end. And so this is how the papacy thought to change times, by changing those time interpretations. For example, like the 1,260 years. Now, the other one that I was talking about, it's a little bit of a mixture. The only commandment, which is the laws, that has time in it is the 4th commandment, which is the Sabbath. He changed the Sabbath over to which is the 7th day of the week, to the 1st day of the week. And so it continues on And so that's that part. Now I wanted to show you real quick. Remember I said it started in 538 and 508 was let me see if I could find it here. Um, so remember we spoke about 1,260 days. So the last chapter of the book of Daniel 12. I mean Daniel 12, the last chapter of the book, and we're gonna finish with this because I thought this was really neat for me to share with you guys. We're having kind of a quick summary is being given to Daniel about times and stuff. We have here verse 7, Daniel 12, verse 7. And I heard the man, now we could cover this in a different video. I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swore by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half. Remember, times, and dividing of time, 1,260 years. It shall be for 1,260 years. Okay. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Okay. So let's continue on. It talks about, the experience that they're gonna, the true believers are gonna have. Many shall be purified during that time period and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, etc. Verse 11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Now, what is this 1,290 days daily sacrifice and all this other stuff? Without getting too deep into it, the word sacrifice is added, should not be there. From the time that the daily, right? Remember, this is the time of Daniel. We're looking at it from his mindset. This is the best way to kind of quickly get through this here. He was living, or this period here would be pagan Rome, right? Because now we're up to the fourth beast here, pagan Rome. They were pagan. From the time that the daily shall be taken away, or the pagan, to keep it simple, the pagan worship shall be taken away, and the abomination that make deathless set up. So in the same nation, remember, Rome went from pagan to papal. So when the pagan aspect is taken off and the papal aspect comes in, the papal aspect is called the abomination that make desolate. What is the abomination that make desolate? Well, what is desolate? First of all, desolate is when God, or it's alone in Bible terms, when God leaves people and leaves them desolate because he left them. For him to do that, there's an abomination that is set up. The abomination that maketh desolate set up. When that abomination is set up, God leaves. There shall be 1,290 days. The papacy was started in 538 for 1,260 years. So the year 1798, that's 1,260 years. But the papacy did not just come out like this. The papacy had to be set up. So the papacy was started to be set up prior to him taking power and being able to exercise. It says here 1,290 days. So 1,290 minus 1,260 gives us 30 days, which is the equivalent of 30 years. So first, we need to set something up before we actually exercise it. So when Justinian set up the laws for the papacy to take power and be able to control and do all this other stuff, well, that was in the year 508. Add another 30 years, that is 538. Are we seeing the math? In the year 508, Justinian sets up the papacy, which the Bible is calling, not me, the abomination that maketh desolate. In 538, 1,260 years, the papacy is now able to exercise its power. And for times and a half, verse 7, he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, and all these things shall be finished. Again, we could, but there's 1,260, which we already covered with Daniel chapter 7 about the little horn and the same time frame. And then taking us back to, that's it. 1,305 and 30 days, 1,300, 1,335. And blessed he is that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. So actually, let's do something real quick. Let me pull up a calculator because I actually want to do this live here with you guys. So we got a calculator here. So we said that 508 plus 13 was 1,335 days. 1335 equals 1843. Okay, so good. So if you guys remember, I spoke about in the introduction videos about 1844. This is another place we get 1844. At that time frame, I spoke to you about Daniel chapter 8, the 2300 days, that is started in the year 457 BC, and that the year 0 does not count, so you have to add a year. Here, we're having the same thing. We're having from the start of the papal power being set up, which is 508, just as we see in history, 30 years later, that's why it's 1,290 days or 1,290 years till the end of the papacy. 30 years later, when he actually starts, it's that 1,260 years, which ends up again in 1798. And now here is saying, blessed he that waited to come into the 1,130 days. And here now we have, blessed is he who comes to this time frame, which ends up being 1843. So from the time of 508, which is the time that it's set up, plus 1,335 days or 1,335 years, comes to the year 1843. Now, it's between 1843 and 1844 because of the fact that the year doesn't necessarily start in January. The Jewish year does not start in January, which is the year supposed to go. I'm not too deep into that part, but it's not the beginning of the year like we have it. It's later on. So it will probably get us to 1844. And I'd have to get a little bit more why it's 1843 instead of 1844. But the point is that it aligns with the, and I believe it's probably will end up 1844 if we look at the month that we start this from. It aligns with the 2300 day prophecy of Daniel chapter 8, which we spoke about in the beginning of this series, and how we are to look at to see where we are in history. All right, so I guess next study we'll actually get into the fourth church, but this is an in between, hopefully, that helps us connect the third church period with the fourth church period, which now you can see from even the book of Daniel, those things that I've been saying. So hopefully you guys were able to follow along, and hopefully you guys were able to see stuff that you probably never seen and help you now see more established from more biblical evidence of why today Christianity believes in the Trinity and whether the Trinity doctrine is true or not. Hopefully this will help you decide that for yourself, and whether worshiping on Sunday, like the Trinity doctrine wants us to worship, is correct or not, or should we worship God on the day that he established from the very beginning, which is not a Jewish day. It is the day that God gave and blessed for humanity. As a matter of fact, it said it's not our day, human days. It said it is God's day, not our day. So it's not for us, it's for him. So are we going to worship him in his day or worship him in a different day? Let us have a prayer and to be able to wrap this up. And I'll see you guys in the next study. Thank you, Father, for this study that we're doing. Thank you for being able to illuminate us and taking us through this different route, which hopefully will help enlighten and expand in the knowledge that you've given us through your prophecy by being able to go through the book of Daniel and touch upon that a little bit. I pray that you could help each one of us be able to come to you and be able to understand you and be able to worship you in spirit and in truth, and worship you and come to realize that even though this emphasis here is not about which, the Sabbath or Sunday, but that the Sabbath is the day that you have given us because you blessed it yourself, which is the day that we should choose for ourselves to be loyal to you. Thank you again, Father, for everything you've done and for helping us throughout the study. And I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, like I said, till next time, I'll see you guys, and then we will now hopefully can finish the fourth church in the next video.